Okay, welcome out. Here we are. Another list in our continuing list of lists. This one is guaranteed ways to piss off your professor. It does happen. On most occasions, students are not even aware that they're upsetting their professor, but it's happening. And if it is, you best learn quickly what not to do before things go badly for you, as in how such an issue can affect your grade. Good luck. Of course, professors aren't sitting there waiting to get upset by students, what students do as a group and individually. But, contrary to popular belief, professors are human. They're fallible. They're impressionable at times. They're not as stalwart as you think they are. Some more so, some less. Some, of course, it's on a varying scale. You've got some that are highly professional, some that are mid-range, and then there are those who are not as professional as the most professional or the mid-range. So keeping that in mind, just some points so you don't get on the professor's bad side. And again, I'm not saying if you do get on the professor's bad side, it's automatically going to go bad for you. They're going to, you're a marked person, and all they're thinking about is retribution. And, how can I lower that student's grade and make this class more difficult for them because they've made it difficult for me? Nothing of that sort. But you always want to be on the upswing, on the upside. You want to make sure that you're doing things correctly. You're, not just to not upset the professor, but to upset the balance between student and teacher, the environment, the classroom environment. You're looking to make things run as smoothly as possible so that you can get the best end results. Typical scenario, typical approach. So coming in late, leaving early, this is especially annoying if several students show up late, one after another, and I've had that happen, where one comes in late, and then a few minutes, another one, and then a few minutes later, another one. It simply disrupts the flow of the lecture and class in general, especially if the door to the class opens at the front of the room where the professor is lecturing. Either be on time or wait until the break to come in to lessen the interruption. I have classrooms that have doors for the front of the classroom, back of the classroom, where there are doors for the front and the back of one classroom. I also have had classrooms where the door is kind of at the side, you're lecturing over here and the door is over here. So sometimes students can sneak in if there's chairs on the right side, if they have to run across the front of the room to get to a chair, that's disrupting. So I think you have to know the lay of the land, I've also had classrooms where, the main entrance is in the back of the class. So that's not as disrupting, of course. If students are coming in at the back of the class and they're sitting in the back of the classroom, that's not as disruptive. So it depends on the lay of the land, the layout of the classroom, and where you're coming in and how disruptive it is or would be if you came in late. So bottom line is just try to be there on time. I think I was very seldom, if ever, late to a class. I'm almost always early. Even my own classes, I probably get there sometimes an hour to half an hour early, depending on what's going on. And I'm there at least 20 minutes. Sometimes I'm late and not there as early as other times, but 95, 98% of the time, I'm there with plenty of time to spare. Okay. So keep that in mind. I understand things happen in the morning. I understand there's rush hour and I understand there's accidents and I understand there's car failures and I understand that people are supposed to give you a ride, don't show up or they show up late or the bus shows up late or whatever, right? So all that take into consideration. So you're trying to work, you know, do your best to be there on time and do all the things that you're supposed to be doing, which we'll get to later on in this list as we move forward. Two, if you're going to miss class, speak to the professor. For those occasions that you know you're going to miss class, best to speak to the professor before doing so, as well as send an email for the record. I like everything in an email, if it's important, if it matters to you, right? If you don't care if I remember or remember what you said or the significance of something that you said or talked to me about or needed to communicate to me about, then it's up to you. But if you're late, if you're going to be late, I get a lot of emails from students. Professor, I won't, and sometimes 2 weeks in advance, which is great. Professor, I won't be in class this Thursday, this Tuesday, whatever, because of blah blah blah. And you don't have to give details. Just if you want to, you don't have to. But communication, open communication as soon as possible, up front. Don't do it at the last moment. Don't do it after the fact, right? If you can. And again, I understand things happen, emergencies happen, and so forth. Generally, most professors allow 2 to 3 absences without penalty. I allow 3. So you have 3 that you will not be penalized for. Even so, it's still good to send the professor an email as to what class and why you'll be missing that class. Bottom line, just use common sense. I've missed 2 classes. This will be my 3rd miss. I know he's not going to penalize me, so I really don't have to email him. Just common courtesy. Just do common courtesy stuff, right? If it doesn't seem necessary, just do it. What's the harm? Next are the foundational sentences. The next step is what is a sentence? This is not supposed to be here. That's a mistake. I guess I didn't edit that one correctly. Just ignore that. Number 4, texting, falling asleep, doing the homework in class. Professors hate, yes, that is a strong word, but pretty accurate here, when students text, do homework, or fall asleep in class. Pet peeves of mine. Class time is just that time that is put aside to study the material at hand, not go off on extracurricular activities, treating class time like a study period. Yeah, so if you're lecturing, you're putting your, I don't know about heart and soul into it, but you've put time into the lecture. It's what you get paid for. You're a professional. You're doing your job, and you would think that people would treat you accordingly. Respect your professors, respect their time, respect your time. That class is class time for that class and nothing else. I have seen students do homework. I have seen students fall asleep in class, or they're on their phone, they're texting, they're doing all kinds of different things, right? So just say no, avoid that stuff. I mean, most classes, you're not in there for, hours at a time. You might be in there for 50 minutes, an hour and a half, an hour 40, an hour 50. And you'll even get breaks, in longer classes. I have hour 50-minute classes. I've had 3 and up to 5-hour classes. Of course, there are several breaks for those classes. But hang in there. You'll probably be sitting there for 45 minutes or so, then you take a break, and then another 45 minutes or so, and then you go home. So, discipline yourself. That's all I can say. It's just do the right thing, as Spike Lee said. Number 5, don't berate the professor in class. This should have a big red exclamation point placed after it. Some students have authority issues, or maybe they feel that it's a place and time to do some of their own lecturing to make their mark in life. I used to think something along those lines. I used to think when I was in college that I'm going to assert my individual personal opinions and insights and angles on things, and I'm gonna make my mark, and the students are gonna see it and be aware, and the professors and blah blah blah. No, not really. No, it's really just an institution for learning. After you're done and you graduate, then you can go out and make your mark and give your speeches and do whatever you want to do, right? Anyways, whatever the reason, don't do it in class. If you want, you can discuss an issue with the professor after class, but doing so in front of the class will not go well for you, believe me. I had a student a couple of times. I've taught 25 years. I really don't have, I haven't had too many problems with students, probably because I'm just very open. I also run a relaxed environment, a very open environment, to keep it real. I don't put on any airs or act arrogant in any way. And it's just, me and you, we're learning. Let's have some fun, relax, and be good people, and blah, blah, blah. Plus, I'm 6'4" and about 265. That also, for some reason, intimidates students. I had one student talk to the dean of it was an interim dean at one of the colleges I was teaching, and she came in and talked to the dean and said, "That Professor Brown, he's big and scary." And so the dean says, "Why? What did he do?" She goes, "Nothing. He's just big and scary." I don't know. Just size sometimes can be intimidating. But anyways, um, I've had issues on a very rare occasion, and I just deal with it quickly, nip it in the bud. This is no time to talk about uh, you know, your personal analysis of my teaching or me or whatever. We'll do this after class. Right now, this is the class's time, right? It's their time, not your time. Well, your time a little bit, but also there. 6, number 7. I for some reason I didn't edit these too well. So yeah. There you go. I must have been sleepy when I was putting this together. Number 7, don't go overboard in challenging a grade. After one semester, I had one student harass me via email on several occasions and social media as well. And he even wanted to meet me in person to discuss things further. Feeling he may have had something else in mind other than discussing. That being said, if you can't reach satisfactory results in speaking civilly to your professor, then maybe the department chair would be the next option. However, and this is a big however, most chairs leave it up to the student and teacher to work it out. Bottom line, most professors who are experienced and have been working for some time are usually going to give you the grade you deserve. Keep in mind that grade changes after the semester is over, involves some time, a good amount of time and work. Yeah, changing the grade after the grades have been submitted. It's really battling upstream, and it's difficult. It's difficult and annoying. I can tell you from personal experience to get that grade change, and I very, very, very rarely do it. On occasion, I have done it. Oftentimes, most of the times, it's because I made a mistake. I didn't calculate the grade correctly, or I missed a paper, or maybe a paper had maybe a student had submitted a paper and I had corrected it and even told them, okay, I'll add it to the grade, but I don't. Your professors do make mistakes, so that's perfectly fine. To have those grades changed, right? But if everything is in place and the professor has really scrutinized and analyzed and gone over your work very thoroughly, as most professors do. That's their job. Most professors do that work very well. I can tell you from personal experience. You know, the grade is the grade. You know, there's very little, other than professor mistake. There's very little that you can do, I think, to change a grade. And it's way after the fact too. It's at the end of the semester, and you would think, well, maybe it was a grade on the final or the research paper, which is handed in late in the semester, and there's no time to get the grade of the student before the end of the semester, right? But you've already done the brunt of the work. You've done 80, 90% of the work. And if you feel like the professor messed up on the grade for the last paper or so, that's really not going to change in 99% of the cases. That's not going to change the overall grade. Might bump it up a little bit, but you've already submitted the majority of the work. And that's what determines your grade, the majority of the work. Okay. Number 8. Let's hope I didn't mess any of these up any further. Anyways, number 8, showing up on time and never missing a class, but that's all you do. I've had this happen. Amazingly more common than you think. I've actually had students who show up and leave on time religiously every single class, but that's about all they do. They don't participate or hand in just a few assignments. I'd much rather have the other way around, where you miss a few classes but hand in everything. That I could understand and appreciate. The opposite is a mystery to me. These are also the students who always make sure that they've signed in. Really? For what reason? Right? That's the question. They're always asking, if they didn't get the sign-in sheet, they're almost desperate to get the sign-in sheet to sign in. I don't know, maybe it's leftovers from high school mentality or thinking, where a lot of the grade did depend on just showing up. College is not like that. I've had many a college class where the professors don't take attendance at all. It's up to you. You're paying the money. It's your investment. The professor's going to do his or her job. If you're not there, that's your problem, right? You're shooting yourself in the foot because you've spent all that money, but you're not doing anything to benefit that money spent. So yeah, showing up is fine. I'm not saying don't be on time. Don't show up on time and leave on time, and show up for every class. That's great. Show up on time. That's great. But you got to do the work. And this, some of these things might fall under, I shake my head. Sometimes students will do certain things in the short term and small measures and large, where I just go, what? Excuse me? What? I'm sorry. That makes no sense whatsoever. Anyways, moving on. Number 9, there's super obvious plagiarism. I've had some students turn a paper to turnitin.com with 100% match, and it turned out to be another student's paper, of course, right? Yeah, so if it's a high percentage, 80, 90%, 100%, of course. I had one student tell me that, what was the excuse? That they were looking at a friend's paper, a friend who had taken my class the previous semester, and just using it as a guide, right? And then accidentally he submitted that paper by mistake, and I'm like, and of course it was a high grade. It was probably an A paper. But anyways, don't do that. If you're writing C-level papers and all of a sudden you hand in PhD level papers, there may be an issue. And don't do that either. I had one student do that. I mean, the improvement was just extraordinary, remarkable, kind of like miraculous. How did you go off and get your PhD, in just a few days? Look at the level of difference, the differentiation between your C paper and your PhD level papers. So I asked the student, did you write this? Did you write this paper? And there's an easy way to check. I just took the paper. He said he wrote it. I took the paper. I looked at some points he made in the paper. And I said, well, you have Dr. So-and-so saying here, this. What did you mean by that? Or then I'd make something up. I'd say, you had Dr. made up name over here saying this, made up quote. And he would try to explain it. And I said, it's not even on the paper, or I would say, you've got 5 sources on here, name 2. They couldn't even name 1, right? So, if you plagiarize, it's very, very easy to check and double check. All right. So don't do it. And then the problem is, you'll get a F for that paper. You may get an F for that class, and you may get kicked out of college for 5 years, academically dismissed. So your choice, not a good thing. Finally, number 10, speaking to the chair or dean first. Always go to your professors first for 99% of issues. Of course, the rare exception is if the professor has done something offensive, that you can't go above the professor's head. But that's only if meeting with the professor has not been satisfactory. Be careful. Going to the chair or dean can spark issues of confrontation that can get out of hand. Again, be careful, right? You really want to, unless it's extenuating circumstances, dire circumstances, the professor has done something unprofessional or untowardly, that should be reported to the chair or the dean, right? Or maybe another source. But if it's grade related, if it's class related, go to the professor first. Always go to the professor, right? I've had students go over my head, not just to the chair, but to the dean. And, the dean will take it, will field your question or consider your issue. But that protocol that's not the protocol. To go to your professor. All right, so that's it for now. Until we meet again for our next list of lists, take care.
No.